Hi everyone, welcome to the webinar, which was headed up the last chance to get into the Portuguese Golden Visa and how are our clients at Holborn doing so with the protection in view of the situation we find ourselves in, namely that the scheme is closing and lots of people are wanting to apply, but they're really concerned that if they apply and spend money and we run out of time, then what happens to the exposure? What about the money they've put in? So the purpose of this webinar is to introduce you to the last remaining resort by Mercan at the 280 level, but more importantly, to just explain with some real details on figures how the risk of spending money and not getting it back is mitigated with a fully guaranteed refund policy that's all contractual. So that's the purpose of the webinar. Now, what I've got is a brief look at the actual brochure itself. I'm going to take you through. I'm not going to dwell too long on the actual pages. All this information will be made available to you should you want it on a one-to-one basis afterwards as well. But I'll take you through this report, which is from Mercan, which is the largest developer in the Portuguese Golden Visa scheme. They're 35 years old, super big, super safe, great reputation. And you'll see a little bit more about that down the presentation. Then what I've got for you is an example showing the figures on a quotation. Should anybody be saying, right, how do I pay? When do I pay? I've got that detail for you, again, which will be available on an individual level as well. And then what we'll do is focus in on the mechanics of how is someone protected if they pay the deposits, if they put their money in and they don't beat the deadline. Who's going to send them the money back? Who's promising to send the money back? So we'll cover that off as well. Okay, so without further ado, what I'm going to do is just take you through the resort itself, and I'll do this page by page. Okay. So what this is telling us that the numbers of people who've applied for this scheme keep going up and up. Right now, it's a crazy scale as well, because of course it's closing. Many people have been thinking about this for a long time, and they realize now that it really is closing, and the applications have gone literally through the roof. The bottom line is that Portugal's super popular as a scheme, and this is why. This is what you get as a result of the end goal, which is the ability to apply for the passport, which, if successful, manifests itself in citizenship. And you can see there on the right there, all the benefits to do with the EU, to do with Portugal. And there's numerous sets of data here talking about why the EU is a great destination for people thinking about their later years and the plan B and the benefits to their children, high quality education, free healthcare, access to all of Europe, so on and so forth. As I said, I'm stressing, I'm not going to dwell on each page too much because many of you will already be familiar with this concept. Okay, drilling down to Portugal itself, the Algarve in southern Portugal is the main focus area where the €280,000 resorts have been clustered. As many of you may be aware, the main cities, Porto and Lisbon, were pretty much excluded from this space about 18 months ago, January the 1st, 2022, when to go into Lisbon or Porto for a new build, they raised the price to 500,000. But in the Algarve, you can still do it for 280,000. And for common sense purposes, that's where most people want to do it. And that's where this resort is. Now, all the benefits of Portugal, again, I'm not going to take your time up today with this. All this content will be readily available on an individual basis, like I said. But this area, Alvar, is the area within the Algarve, and it's just beautiful. It's very nice. It's a massive gem in the tourist industry. And that's where Mercan have chosen to build this beautiful 5-star hotel. Now, the village itself, a lot of history behind it. Program itself, in terms of it being now just over 10 years old, very popular and soon to be closed, unfortunately. Again, lots of statistics talking about how many people have applied, how many people have been given their golden visas, and ultimately, you know, the people going all the way through the scheme, massive success rate. It's safe, it's proven, 12 years old. And along that route, of course, the actual period whereby people had to own the property to qualify was reduced from 6 years to 5 years, and that's what it currently is. In terms of requirements, this is why the Portuguese scheme is the most popular one, because it's just very, very easy to access. There's very little in terms of what it asks of you. The notion of it being a residency scheme is laughed at by the rest of Europe, because as we know, you only have to stay there 7 days a year for the 5 qualifying years. 5 qualifying years, after that, you can apply for permanent residency or the passport. Best things about Portugal. Okay, the first factor there saying 1 year to get the residence permit. To be accurate, right now that's gone over. It's about 15 months. In terms of thinking about families, free healthcare for life and very, very high quality education is brilliant. Visa-free travel to the Schengen area. There's no worldwide income taxes. So for the wealthier amongst us, worrying about assets around the world, being pillaged for taxes, that doesn't happen with the Portuguese scheme. And of course, after you've done it for 5 years, the residency allows you to apply for the passport. And in terms of the residency along the way, you can live, work, study with your family, children within Portugal, full rights for those 5 years while you're waiting. And then upon successful application for the passport, the 27 countries all become your home. Now, the place itself, Alvor, and the 5-star resort, basically it's spectacular. But again, I'll show you this. In terms of getting hung up on it, forgive my bluntness, but there's no point. Treat this investment as a fixed deposit in a bank account. And like everything, if you're going to put your money in a bank account, you want to go with the biggest, safest bank that's available. That's what Mercan are, and that's what this resort is. It's in a perfect location. It will prosper. It can be very, very profitable for Mercan in the longer term. And that facilitates the guaranteed buyback from year 6. Just to dwell on that, anybody who had reason to say they didn't want to give the property back after year 6, that they're enjoying visiting it, they're enjoying their free week per year to go and stay there cost-free, you can keep it a little bit longer if you want, but a maximum of 12 years is the cutoff. So by year 12, you would have to automatically give your title deeds back to Mercan, and they will refund your purchase price. Most people would say that as soon as they've achieved the permanent residency or the citizenship, subject to what they choose, they would do the buyback straight away. You can take your 280,000 euros back and then put it to work in a conventional investment sense. Remember, this is not what we would class as an investment in the true sense of the word. This is about getting residency, followed by the ability to apply for citizenship. People who get hung up on the fact that, well, I'm not making money, please, please, please acknowledge the fact here and now, this is not an investment scheme to make money. It's to get a plan B in a safe, secure country where you and your family can prosper with high levels of social infrastructure and security for the future. It's not to make money on it. Okay. I'm not going to go on about this too much. The bottom line is it's in Alvor. It's in an absolute great position for tourism. This guarantees the sanctity and the profitability of the hotel, which guarantees your buyback after 6 years. Okay. Alvor is famous. It's beautiful. It's a heritage site. Just really, really good place. And the concept is just saying that it's perfect place, perfect location, perfect developer. Mercan, as I said, they've got a history which is without blemish. They're building this 5-star hotel. There's going to be space for 360 investors in it. And it's at the 280,000 euro level. You'll see down there in terms of project timeline, call for investors is now this month, and completion date is Q4 2025, so just over 2 years. And that is that. Now, what I'm going to do for you essentially is just stop that share. And then I'm going to share again and bring up the pricing example. Okay. Now, of course, this refers to the hotel resort that we've just looked at in the brochure. This is for a family of 4. And again, we've got these quotations for a single applicant all the way up to a family of 6. And if there's anyone with larger families, because remember, with the Portuguese Golden Visa, it's not just mum and dad. You can put your children on, but you can also put grandparents on as well from both sides. So if mum had mum and dad still alive, and dad had mum and dad still alive, all four grandparents can go on the same application. Another example of why Portugal's just stand out better than all the other residency schemes in Europe. But this one's for a family of four. You'll see the total cost there. That total cost is everything from start to finish in the Golden Visa process, which at the minute is running through to about 15 months. You only pay for the Golden Visas when you do your biometrics just before getting the visa itself. So what we can also show you is that total there of 322. You can see the property there is 280,000. So all the additional stuff is fees. And the last payment in this program is the 23,000 for the visas itself. And the 23,000, as I said, is payable right at the end. You can see there, that's the 23,000 in month 15. This is the big payment. It used to be 3 months when we were doing the program before, but now that's effectively 3 or 4 weeks. And the legal fees are the ones that start it all off. So that's the timeline. The reality is, in the first 4 weeks, you'll be paying for everything. Total of approximately 300,000 euros. The additional Golden Visa charges only payable when it's time to get the visas in approximately 15 months. Okay, so there's nothing more complex than that. The bottom line is, that is the fee structure. That's the payments. Now, the key now is, and I'll leave this screen up, let's have a discussion around the important factor that we've got that's unique, that's allowing Holborn Pass to still take applications from people who are wanting the Portuguese Golden Visa for them and their loved ones. So we know that the law was first issued back in February 16th this year, and it's been a tumultuous process. It's been in and out of Parliament, and we finally had July the 19th, where the Parliament issued the draft legislation in the form of formal legislation. And that said that the law would be passed in line with the draft legislation. Nothing's changed. So the scheme is closing to the real estate investment model, which is the one we've looked at today. And the next stage, the legislation goes through to the President of Portugal, who will essentially stamp it and it will assent into law. But the President has 3 options. He, and it is a he currently, he can stamp it straight away and put what he deems an appropriate date on it. Now that could be the end of August, could be mid-September, could be the end of September, we don't know. But equally, the President could take the view that he's completely uncomfortable with it and he refuses to stamp it and he sends it back to Parliament. That's essentially a constitutional review, because in his opinion, there's something wrong with the legislation and he believes it will expose Portugal, the government, to liability by passing the law. But there's a middle option as well. He could actually express concerns on certain elements of the legislation and refer it back to a special committee for them to have a look at it again, which will culminate in another vote in Parliament. So the difficulty is we don't know when the scheme will be closed. We know it's going to be this year. The likelihood it goes to the end of the year is probably slim. The likelihood that it gets before the end of the year as a closure is 100%, but we just don't know when. So lots and lots of people are saying, well, I do want to apply for the scheme because it's unique. It's the only one that I can live where I live. I don't have to move. I don't have to go reside there. I don't have to pay taxes. I can invest my money. I can pay the fees and I can carry on my life unrestricted, uninterrupted. And I can start on the 5-year program, put my money in, pass the language test, which is the easiest one in Europe. I can travel to Portugal every year for those 7 days. I own the property. And after 5 years, then I can apply for the passport or permanent residency. No other residency scheme in Europe offers this. They all request that you go and live there to be able to navigate towards the passport. And many people in Asia, Hong Kong, Singapore, Dubai, Bahrain, Saudi, they're very, very happy where they're living. They don't want to move now, but they would like to start initiating the plan B. Just to repeat, there is only Portugal that allows this. So in view of the fact that this is a once in a lifetime chance because it's going to close, people are saying, well, I want to try. I want to try to apply. Our caveat as a provider is to say we cannot guarantee success. Why? Because we could run out of time. We're currently taking around 4 to 5 weeks to get an application finished completely and submitted. So essentially, we're almost at the end of July. We know we can get things done by the end of August, but the president could timestamp the law before then. So if you apply and we're doing everything as professional and as quickly as possible, and the president closes it before your application's complete, we fail. And there's nothing we can do about that. But the big issue is emotionally failing after applying will be disappointing. But even bigger than that, of course, you'll see at the top there, there's legal fees, 14,000 euros you pay to get started. And then within 3 weeks, you'll be paying the balance, the 285. That's a lot of money. And if along that path, the president stamps the legislation and closes it before we get finished, you need to know you're going to get every euro back. And here's the important thing. We work with our law firm in Portugal. We've got an office in Portugal. We're in 17 countries around the world, but the focus here is on Portugal. We, as a provider, the developer Mercan, which is the biggest, largest developer in the Portuguese Golden Visa scheme, and the law firm, which is International Atlantic Services, IAS, all this information will be made readily available. We've all committed to a full 100% money back guarantee in the event that we run out of time. So let's simplify this. If you want a plan B on the continent of Europe, if you want a well-regulated investment scenario with a very, very easy language test and residency requirements that essentially are no more than a decent holiday in a beautiful country for 5 consecutive years, and you want to get that residency and know that just to hold the scheme in place, hold the property for 5 years, facilitates you being able to apply for the Portuguese passport without ever having to live there. This is the last of its kind. It's not going to be available after the law's passed. If this scenario is something that appeals to you and you want to apply, the question is, what's going to stop you applying and trying? The obvious answer is, I'm worried about paying my money and we fail. Do I get all my money back? So we're giving you a contractual written guarantee echoed by the law firm and the developers that should we fail due to the timing, you will get every euro refunded back to you. So the exposure is the finances, understandably, of course. But if that exposure is eradicated, the question is, would you still try and get your application in and completed? If the answer is yes, then we should apply. The bottom line is we will follow up with everyone. Obviously, there's a question and answer facility on here. No problem at all. We can ask questions and answer them now. But at the same time, most people would like to talk about this one-on-one. I'll be available. My colleagues are available. So anybody who's looking at this and thinking, okay, as long as I can see the contract, as long as I can see the refund clause, get it confirmed in writing, because it's real, of course it's real, then there's no reason really why not to move forward. So that's 20 minutes just passed. And the notion of expanding this for the point of expanding it, there's no point. The bottom line is it's the last chance. The main reason people won't apply is they're worried about losing money. If we mitigate that risk, do you want to apply? I'm just going to check the Q&A part because there is someone who's asked a question. Yes, thank you very much, Vickery. It's a great question. I did say that there's a guaranteed buyback after year 5 for the 280. So this is a really topical point. So Mercan themselves, they essentially use your money to build the hotel. Clearly it's interest free for them, very, very profitable for them, but it allows you the residency access and ultimately apply for the passport. So both parties are winning here. But Mercan do not want other people to own this hotel. They don't want to have to pay rent out. They want to own this hotel outright. This is their business model, has been for 35 years. So the idea is they want you to own it for 5 years and then give up the ownership by giving your title deeds back to our law firm, and they'll return you 280, the purchase price. And again, that's contractual. It's not just a promise. It's not a nominal aim. It's a contractual guarantee that they will buy it back off you. And as I said, the notion that it's a great investment, not at all. We nor Mercan pretend that it is. It's a fixed deposit for 5 years that facilitates the terms of the Portuguese Golden Visa. Doesn't make you any money, but it's super, super safe. You would give the title deeds back after you've achieved either permanent residency or citizenship. And then Mercan will refund the purchase price, the 280, which of course is poor in light of the fact that inflation might have driven this property price up to untold levels. Well, that's great for Mercan, not for yourselves as investors. But again, the aim is not to make money on this. It's to facilitate residency that then allows you to apply for the passport. So yes is the answer. Guaranteed buyback after the 5 years. Now, after the 5 years, you opt for permanent residency or citizenship. On completion of either of those, that's when Mercan are happy to do the buyback. Why? Because property ownership is a big facilitator in the application for citizenship. So it's just best practice from Mercan and from our law firm to say to you, don't do the buyback before you've got PR or citizenship. It will make your application not as strong. And the end result of this, of course, is to get you to permanent residency or citizenship. 95% of people apply for citizenship, of course, but you wouldn't want to weaken your application by giving the property back too early. Now, there's a few more questions. I'm just going to open these up. Bear with me. Adnan, thank you very much for your question, sir. Okay, what is the processing time? We are processing applications in 4 to 5 weeks. We know we can get that done. We're doing it as we speak. That's the good news. The bad news is, of course, the scheme might be closed in 3 weeks or 4 weeks. We don't expect that, but we're obliged to be completely transparent here. There is a risk that it closes before we complete the application. If so, what we can't do is refund your emotion, the time you've invested in the documents, and all your focus and hard work, which you will have undergone working alongside us, processing things and getting things done nice and quickly and accurately. But what we can do is promise you that there's a refund on every element of any euros that you passed over. So financially, the risk is mitigated. What we can't do is remove that downside, which will come if some people apply or they do it too slowly and we run out of time. I'd love to be able to say that's not the case, but it is the case. We could run out of time. Fikri, another question. Thank you very much. The right to apply for citizenship vests on year 5. Well, it's on the completion of year 5. So you have to be in the program for 5 years, and being in the program means satisfying the residency, which is 7 days per year for those 5 years. Also, you've got to own the qualifying property for those full 5 years. And you've also got to pass the language test as well, which is incredibly modest and easy. Still a language test, however. I always stress this when we're talking about adding grandparents to the application, because if people are like me in any way, as I get older, I'm not as great learning languages. So just be mindful, it is a simple language test, but we need to respect that it is still a test. After those 5 years have been fulfilled, you're then able, with our lawyers who are going to stay with you all the way through, it's the same law firm, you apply for permanent residency or citizenship. Many people do ask, why would someone apply for permanent residency instead of going for the passport? Well, there is some nationalities around the world whose governments are not very keen on their citizens holding 2 passports. So some people from various countries do say, I'll apply for permanent residency first, and when the time's right and I want to give up my home passport, then I will apply for the Portuguese passport in conjunction with giving that up. Okay, I'm just going to drop down these questions. I think I've answered that one, Fikri, but just to be safe, do you have to wait for a period of time post permanent residency? No. Essentially, after you've qualified with the 5 years, you can apply for either PR or citizenship. If you apply for permanent residency, that's fine. But then at any time in the future, you're entitled to be able to apply for the citizenship as well. Okay, that's the question so far. I'll just close that down and double check, see if there's any new ones coming in. No, there's not. Okay. I'm just going to reiterate on a real summary level now, though. What we have is a limited time window where the Portuguese Parliament, their process will essentially bring this new law into life, and it will be stamped, given a date. When that law is stamped or finished, if you like, it may well be the end of August. Could be the 20th of August. Could be the end of September. We don't know what date's going to be on there. It's all subject to the president confirming the legislation and stamping it, bringing it live. The president may refuse, may send it back to Parliament because he believes it's unconstitutional. That at this stage is unlikely, but the president could ask for it to be reviewed and put back to another vote. Certain elements of the law, he could ask this, a constitutional review. Or he could stamp it. The president may propose a closure date of end of September, end of October. That would be wonderful. The reality is we don't know. So if you apply for this today, tonight, tomorrow, we can't tell you whether you're going to be successful, as frustrating as that is. What we can say is we'll support you in trying. That's the opportunity you get. You can try. We can mitigate the risk of financial exposure, promising you that in this process, any euros that you pay will be refunded if we run out of time. Our stance on this is the same as the developers and the lawyers who say, if someone really wants this Portuguese scheme, this is the time to do it, because there will be literally hundreds of people who are still considering, waiting, hoping that something's going to get better. And forgive me being really candid, but this will not get any better. Right now is the best time to apply for it. If someone applies tomorrow, then we've just lost another evening of processing time. Okay, there's another question coming in. I'll just look at this. Okay. How can I guarantee that you guys won't be too busy to process my app in time? The truth is, you can't guarantee that. I'd love to be able to give you that guarantee, but you cannot. The reality is, if a lot of applications come in overnight tonight, there is every chance that our capacity gets overrun. That's the last thing you want to hear, but it's the truth. What we've done in terms of staff and resource, we've still got capacity because we planned forward. We knew this was coming. So right now, we've absolutely got spare capacity to handle more applications. We forecast how many we think we will get in, but I can't give you a guarantee that our forecast would be too low and we get more applications in than we expect, in which case we will be over capacity and things will be slowed down. That's the honest truth of it, which could result in someone's application not making it in time, which would be awfully frustrating and a casualty of commerce. That's just the real world we live in. What we can promise you is, number one, any money you've paid you will get back. And number two, at least you tried. And we tried our best as well to get you into this. So the alternative to trying is to not try, and I'll give you a 100% guarantee. If you don't try for it, you won't get in. And again, that's just the reality. That's the truth of it. So sorry for that honest answer, but it is really an honest answer. I can't guarantee, sadly. Now, I'm just going to check the questions again. Okay. Just going to wait a little while longer. We've just come up to the 30-minute. I think I'll give it to 2 more minutes. I'll keep it open for any further questions. But safe to say, the data where you received the invite for this has got our contact details on. Please do reach out to us. We will, with your permission, and anybody who doesn't want to follow up, please just drop your details on the chat now, and we will respect that, because of course it's good to listen, but you might not want any phone calls or emails coming into you. So please tell us, and we'll make sure we avoid that. But if we don't hear from you, what we will do is send you an email, and we'll try and give you a call, maybe this evening or tomorrow. And all we're going to say is, did you enjoy it? Have you got any feedback for us? And of course, is there something you want to do? But anybody who's, intent on applying for this, then you'll probably be in touch with us before the other way around, I suspect. Okay, that's 32 minutes down. I think it's time to draw this to a close. Lastly, I just want to say sincere thanks for your time and your attention. Really, really do appreciate it. And for those who want to apply, best wishes, all the luck in the world. We will need some luck, invariably. We want to have as long as possible. But as I say, if you want to have a try, then you give yourself the best chance possible. But for anybody who does, then fingers crossed and best wishes. Let's get this done as quick as possible. And if the time's wrong, if you don't want to do this, you don't want to rush, there's lots of other schemes available, different to Portugal, but we'll be here for you should you want to discuss them as well. All right? Thanks ever so much for your attention once again.